I beg to ask the Minister for Infrastructure whether the level of maintenance allowance local authorities are permitted to retain will be reviewed before consideration of the 2018 rents.
Infrastructure.
Thank you, Mr. President. In a written answer for September Tynwald, I provided with the opportunity to highlight some of the positive work my department was undertaking in conjunction with local authorities to better understand the financial pressures being faced by some housing providers and to review the sustainability of the existing allowance system. To answer the honourable member's question, I can confirm the level of maintenance allowance will be reviewed as part of the annual rental setting process for 2018 to 2019. Local authorities are asked to provide their thoughts on what the allowance levels for the coming period should be, and certainly this will form part of my thinking. When the policy to increase rents by more than inflation commenced, the allowances were adjusted down accordingly. In other words, through the percentage allowable reduced due to increased rental incomes, providers actually received more in cash terms, or at least the same amount of funding. There is one exception in 2011-12 where there was a monetary reduction. However, in all other years, the maintenance allowance and the community allowances have increased in line with inflation. The honourable member will be aware that the recent rental increases have been much smaller, and therefore an element of the work my department is doing is to understand the impact of this on allowances.
Supplementary. Mr. Ashford.
Thank you, Mr. President. Would the Minister accept that in terms of percentages over the last 7 or so years, local authorities have seen the percentage they can retain for maintenance go from 33.33% down to 30%, down to around about 24% where it now rests? Would he accept that that is putting pressure on certain local authorities? And would the Minister also accept that when he talks about the years where the maintenance allowance was increased by inflation each year, that if you go to those years' inflation indexes, what you find is that building materials and that element of inflation, when you look at it on its own, is actually higher than the overall inflation index?
Thank you, Mr. President. Obviously, there's a lot of historic in the sense that they went up by cash, but whether they went up enough, etc. And I appreciate there are pressures. That's why I have asked for a review for this year as part of the rental setting process on the allowances, and that will be undertaken.
Supplementary, Mr. Callister.
Thank you, Mr. President. Would the Minister agree that the assets belong to those local authorities that provide local authority housing, and therefore they should be able to maintain those properties, not just for today's tenants, but also for future tenants?
Minister.
Yes, as I say, I am keen that we do a review and that the correct maintenance allowance is there. Obviously, it does vary. There are some places which have had new housing, and therefore the maintenance isn't quite as onerous.